All right, good morning, everybody, and happy February 1st. Welcome to Pediatric Grand Rounds. Thanks for being here. I think most of our audience now knows that there's a plumbing issue in Wright Auditorium and it is being repaired. We're remote for at least one more week after today, but we're so happy to have you all here with us on WebEx today. The usual reminders from me, please make sure you're muted when you want to be muted, that your camera's off when you want it to be off. However, if you have questions or comments at any time, you can enter them into the chat with everyone box and I will see them. And so will Dr. Bruner, and we'll be able to share your questions and comments with the speakers during the Q&A. And from here, I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Cora Bruner, who's going to introduce our lectureship and our speakers for today. Thanks so much, everybody.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Cora Bruner. I use she, her pronouns. And I have the honor and privilege to be the introducer for the Jamie Lynn Klavano Lectureship in Holistic Medicine. Today our speakers are Dr. Michelle Loy and Dr. Maria Mascarenas. And I'll introduce them a little bit more in a couple of minutes, but I just want to talk a little bit about the fact that this lectureship is on holistic care. And it's definitely important before I even start to talk about a land acknowledgement, especially today. I want to acknowledge I personally live on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people. This acknowledgement does not in any way take place of an authentic relationship with the indigenous communities, but serves as a first step in honoring the land we live on. And I also want to acknowledge that today is the first day of Black History Month. And so I want to acknowledge that this country would not exist or prosper if it weren't for the enslaved labor of Black people, and honor the legacy of the African diaspora and Black life knowledge and skills stolen due to ongoing violence and ongoing systemic oppression. If you want to know more about the land you live on and what you can do to give back to the people on whose land you live, there's a link at the bottom of this land acknowledgement slide, nativeland.ca. So this is a Klavano lectureship, which was begun in 1997. It's a very important lectureship given to us by the Goffs, who wanted to honor the child of their friends, Jamie Lynn Klavano, who was a patient at Children's Hospital when she was a little girl. And during the time she was at the hospital, there was an integrative, holistic approach to her cardiac care, where there was a lot of folks involved, made sure that she was okay, including music therapy, art therapy, animal therapy, child life, nursing, everything that you could imagine to help bring more joy to this child as she was going through a very challenging procedure and time in her life. And the family also felt very, very indebted to the integrative and holistic care team at Seattle Children's Hospital. And for that reason, they have given funds to promote this lectureship, in addition to Dr. Kathy Kemper. So we've had over 20 lectures, which is just, we can't even fit them all on one page. So I'm just going to give a little recap of some of the more interesting ones in the last few years. So Dr. Hallam spoke about the reemergence of traditional medicine as a Native American healer at family medicine at Seattle Children's Hospital and also at the Puyallup Tribal Health Authority. Dr. Erica Sabinga spoke about mindfulness in our youth in the schools. And then Dr. Brown spoke about how to begin a pediatric integrative medicine program. Dr. Morris spoke about sickle cell disease and arginine. Dr. Shuling Sai spoke about acupuncture. And Dr. Russell spoke about ADHD complementary and holistic care for those youth who have this disorder and how we can approach it in a different way. So on that note, I'm going to introduce very quickly, because I know they have a lot to say, Dr. Maria Mascarenas, who is a gastroenterologist at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia and a professor at the Perelman School of Medicine at University of Pennsylvania. She is currently section chief of division at the Division of Gastroenterology, and also, very, very importantly, has written many, many publications, including a textbook called the Anti-Inflammatory Family Cookbook to help her patients learn about and cook tasty and healthy meals. She received her medical degree from St. John's Medical College in India and her pediatric training in Brooklyn and fellowship in pediatric gastroenterology at CHOP, fellowship integrative medicine at the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine. I could go on and on about Dr. Mascarenas, but I'm going to stop because I need her to talk. But I'm also going to introduce Dr. Michelle Loy. Both of these brilliant clinicians are friends and colleagues. Dr. Loy is a nationally recognized physician who received her degree from Harvard and her MD degree from Cornell Medical College and residency also at Cornell. She completed a certificate in medical acupuncture from SUNY Downstate Medical Center and is board certified in integrative medicine, lifestyle medicine, acupuncture, and pediatrics. She provides integrative medicine consultations at Cornell Medical University in New York, which solves challenging clinical problems across the spectrum of general and subspecialty pediatric and adolescent medicine. She is a lecturer for the Plant-Based Nutrition Certificate Program at Cornell and serves on the Medical Advisory Board of Plant-Powered Metro New York and Integrative Oncology Working Group Culinary Medicine Expert Panel. Again, could go on and on about Dr. Loy, and yet I need them to talk. She's also a colleague of mine on the Medical Executive Committee for the section on Holistic Integrative Medicine for the Academy of Pediatrics, and this is a plug before they even start about thinking about becoming part of our section if you are an AAP member. So without further ado, I'm going to let my dear friends and colleagues, Drs. Loy and Dr. Mascarenas, speak about culinary medicine using food for physical, mental, and environmental health. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Cora. Marie and I are delighted to accept this invitation to speak on culinary medicine. So we have no disclosures, and we hope that at the end of this presentation, you will appreciate the need, the role, the scope of culinary medicine in medical education, patient care, and clinician well-being. You'll recognize some of the mental and physical health benefits of a whole food anti-inflammatory diet, including herbs and spices, grains, vegetables, fruits, beans, lentils, nuts, seeds, mushrooms, prebiotic and probiotic rich foods. And we hope you will take away some practical culinary medicine principles to create delicious, healthy, inexpensive, and easy to prepare food. So what is culinary medicine? It is the combination of the science of nutrition and health with the art of cooking. So it's an evidence-based field, and it brings together nutrition and culinary knowledge and skills to help patients both maintain their health and prevent and treat many of these chronic diseases by choosing healthy food in conjunction with appropriate medical care. And there are a lot of reasons for culinary medicine, but one of the main ones is to make evidence-based nutrition education practical and accessible for everyone. And also to show that healthy food can be inexpensive and easy. There are emerging studies showing that it is associated with cost savings, improved patient outcomes in a number of conditions, cardiovascular, diabetes, cancer, improved mental, cognitive well-being, improvement in plant intake, quality of life. And then on the side of providers, improvements in counseling of medical students and in healthcare provider well-being. The White House conference from 2022 set forth three objectives: ending hunger and closing healthcare disparities, reducing diet-related disease by 2030, and improving practical medical education. And culinary medicine actually addresses all three of these very important objectives. We know that the average U.S. physician receives very little training in nutrition. Yet, this 2022 Aspen Food is Medicine report showed that, few people report receiving dietary guidance from their healthcare provider. But for those who do, a great majority will initiate dietary changes. At the same time, 86% of physicians feel unqualified to offer nutritional advice. And many come into medical school feeling nutrition is very important, but over time lose interest. Currently, there are really no required CMEs in nutrition, but we hope this will be changing soon. This Eat Lancet report from 2019 also showed that the food policy priorities that affect three major areas. So again, the hunger crisis, both over and under nutrition, addresses food insecurity. The health crisis related to diet-related chronic diseases, as far as overnutrition and the promotion of nutritional health. And then the climate global warming crisis, protecting the environment. And all of these crises are affected by food policy and food choices. Of course, we know there are benefits to patient care, But when you look at cost outcomes, there are emerging studies and data looking at the cost savings of food delivery, medically tailored meals, medically tailored foods, produce prescriptions, so there are a number of insurance companies and different organizations that have shown benefits not only in, for example, the hemoglobin A1C scores, but also cost reductions. Here in New York City, we, with the support of Mayor Adams, and we have the New York City Health and Hospital system, which is one of the largest hospital systems, started Meatless Mondays and making the plant-based diet the default choice. And they showed that these plant-based meals were really accepted, high satisfaction, and a side benefit was that there were cost savings, 59 cents per tray, when the inpatient meals went plant-based by default in 2022. And again, patients were very satisfied with these plant-based meals. The same thing is being done in the New York City public schools as well. Melinda Ring at Northwestern has a wonderful Cooking Up Health curriculum for medical students, which includes nutrition, disease prevention, public health coaching, different cultural cuisines, and culinary skills. And so you see with each week, they cover things like shopping and food access, and they're exposed to different types of cuisines and different types of culinary skills while addressing these very important disease conditions and addressing the applied nutritional topics. And you can see that the medical students really learned a lot from this and had good response. This kale cell intervention is done up in Kaiser Permanente. This was done for residents, and it was very easy. They could use the plastic bag as a sort of a cutting board. They had knives, they had lemon, some oil, and they could do this during, for example, a noon conference. In my clinical practice, I use culinary medicine every day in my practice to support the biopsychosocial model that I use, whether it's obesity or diabetes or ADHD or autism, anxiety, depression, PCOS, dysmenorrhea, migraines, or to address the side effects, for example, of my oncology patients related to mood, fatigue, pain, or sleep. And almost in every visit, I will start with the lifestyle pillar of anti-inflammatory diet. So emphasizing these components, which Maria will speak about. And again, I include them in my one-on-one consultations and also in my group visits in lifestyle medicine, prenatal care, women's health, mental health, and oncology. So we have a number of group visits. I'm going to tell you about the lifestyle change one. I also have an oncology one, which we just published a paper on, actually. Women's health, fertility, mental wellness. And actually this month we just started a seasonal eating group visit as well. And there are various community classes that we do as well. Like I have a shop with the doc grocery tour next month. So this lifestyle change share medical appointment was a 6-session series, 60 minutes. These are the topics from basic food groups to, food shopping trips, to curbing your craving, to culinary demos. I run this with my dietitian, and we include motivational interviewing techniques. We do optional pre-post in-body anthropometric blood markers. They meet with the dietitian one time in the middle of the 6-session series, and we did some sort of program review. And this is covered by insurance. We've had no denials. And patients, this was over a couple, 2 years or so. We had 307 visits with 80 unique patients, an average of about 8 people joined per session, but it was a range from 3 to 18. And this was some of our feedback. People really, rethought how they shopped and prepped, how they snacked, less fatigue. They were less anxious. There were positive downstream effects with their family and friends. They enjoyed learning new recipes, trying new foods. They really enjoyed the cooking demos and also the camaraderie of the group, the accountability there. People were sharing their battles, People were not skipping as many meals, eating with mindfulness, eating more vegetables. On and on. It was quite, the response has been quite good. Some people wanted us to make it longer. And some of them even asked that we would give them homework and projects activities to apply what they learned in class. We're not the only ones that have done this. This was done at Mass General, where they had culinary nutrition share medical appointments. This was pre-pandemic, so this was in person. But here you can see the actual recipes they used, the total cost. This was back in 2015, and the disease topics and nutrition topics they covered. Okay.
Right, that's my cue. So thank you, Cora, for inviting me, and thank you for everyone for listening. So the next section is going to be looking at the benefits of food and also what do we teach people, right? So it's important for us to know. So one big message, and I'm probably preaching to the choir since you all live in Seattle, but is the message about whole foods versus ultra processed foods. So, whole foods are higher in nutrients than processed foods. When they make up the majority of a diet, they may actually lower heart disease, cancer, and type 2 diabetes. And the beauty about whole foods like integrative medicine, it allows nutrients and modalities to kind of work together like the way they were meant to. So if you take this corn, there's the corn minimally processed. It's processed in a can, and then you take it to a corn-based Dorito. That's the difference between minimally processed, and ultra processed. And we do know that ultra processed foods are linked to prematurity, IBD, dementia, cancer, mental health condition. And I'm going to show you some data on that, just a few key slides from the literature. But the issue is not the food or the nutrients, but it's the processing. So how do we recognize ultra processed foods? So they are basically industrially transformed. There's no evidence relationship to foods. They can't be made in home kitchens, and they usually have a lot of additives that are added to improve the color, the flavor, the texture. There's added salt and sugar and fats. And we know that from 1999 to 2018, the estimated proportion of energy intake from the consumption of ultra processed foods increased among youths in the US and was the majority of their total energy intake. So it's a big problem for us pediatricians. So why should we avoid ultra processed foods? So the obvious, there's more fat, saturated fat, added sugar, salt. We know they're not good for us. There's lower fiber. There's vitamin density because you're polishing the rice, you're taking that good stuff out of it. Also, there are neoform contaminants with carcinogenic properties that are present in heat-treated processed foods. And then the packaging may also have carcinogenic and endocrine disruptors like BPA. Food additives like sodium nitrate and titanium dioxide are not good for us. And they have shown this link to dyslipidemia, overweight, obesity, hypertension in university and college and in children and university students. And there are many additives that are approved for use in the US that are banned in Europe, for example. So this was a study where they looked at the relationship of sugary beverages, brain structure, and incident dimension and I like the study because I'm now in the older age category, so it's more relevant for me. But they looked at almost 1,300 participants that were followed for almost 10 years. They developed dementia, and then they found that the higher sugar sweetened beverages and artificially sweetened beverage intake was associated with a higher risk of dementia, and moderate juice intake was associated with a lower risk of dementia. So I think the healthy people 2000 to 25 also recommended instead of 8-ounce servings, 4-ounce servings or 2-ounce servings of juice. So juice is good in moderation. An apple or an orange is better than the actual juice, but the vitamins, etc., in the juice are the beneficial things from what the study says. Next slide. So how about pro-inflammatory foods? This was a study done in almost 200. It was a compilation of 3 huge data sets to almost 200,000 subjects, where they looked at serum inflammatory markers, CRP, 6, TNF alpha, and they looked to see whether they were reduced or elevated, and then they estimated this. They did diet analysis looking at this empiric dietary inflammatory pattern, the EDIP score, and they found that if your EDIP score was high, you had a increased risk of developing Crohn's disease around the age of in your mid 50s, as opposed to those with a low EDIP score were more associated with a healthy colon. And so given this importance, it makes all the more sense for us to teach our children healthy habits now so that they have less disease later on in life. Next slide. This was a study looking again at cancer, ultra-processed food consumption, cancer risk and cancer mortality from the UK. They looked at, again, 200,000 people aged 40 to 69. They looked at their 24-hour diet recalls. This was over a 3-year period, and 55% were women. In the follow-up period, 8% developed cancer. And again, ultra-processed food consumption was associated with an increase in cancer risk and cancer mortality. And for each 10% increase in ultra-processed food consumption, there was an increased risk of ovarian cancer with increased mortality, breast cancer mortality, and any cancer risk was 2% with mortality 6%. So I hope I'm convincing you now when you go somewhere to not buy that bag of ultra processed whatever, which I am addicted to a little bit, so I don't buy it and keep it in the house because I know my brain has been programmed to search for it. But next slide. And then moving on to mental health, again, ultra-processed food consumption and mental health. This was a systematic review and meta-analysis. And out of the 17 observational studies, again, greater ultra-processed food intake was associated with increased rates of depression and anxiety, whether assessed together or separately. And so we talk about the pandemic, right? And I wonder whether some of the pandemic increase was, I don't know if people have looked at the ultra processed food intake during that time, but for all of us who deal with, who are pediatricians who've been in practice a long time, we are seeing more anxiety and depression in younger patients. And I wonder whether this is in any part contributing. Next slide. This was a very nice paper that Michelle actually shared, where they looked at foods and they assessed this antidepressant score to it. And in general, if you look at table 3, vegetables, organ meats, and fruits and seafood rise to the top. And the foods that were related to the prevention or treatment of a depressive disorder were the nutrients, I should say, were folate, iron, omega-3 fatty acids, magnesium, potassium, selenium, thiamine, vitamin A, vitamin B6, B12, vitamin C, and zinc. And then the highest scoring foods for animals were oysters, mussels, seafood, organ meats, and then plants were leafy greens, lettuce, peppers, cruciferous vegetables. And so what we've done in integrative medicine clinic is when patients come in and there's this background of anxiety, depression, any mental health, we recommend they eat diets rich in these nutrients. They don't have to be vegetarian, there can be any which way, but we recommend that they eat foods rich in these nutrients. Next slide. So moving on to the anti-inflammatory diet, Michelle talked about it. So the anti-inflammatory diet was really a term coined by Dr. Andrew Weil, and he took the best of the Asian diet, which is represented here in the Asian diet pyramid, and the Mediterranean diet, which we'll talk more about, where there's tons of literature, and came up with this anti-inflammatory food pyramid for adults. And if you see what's common in all these is the emphasis on fruits and vegetables and unprocessed food. But if you look at the Asian and Mediterranean diet pyramid, it's physical activity, community. So when we talk about diet, it's diet, but it's also a way of life. And so really physical activity, being in community, doing everything together is also part of the health benefits that we see from this diet. So they derive from the healthiest components of these two patterns, and they both are plant-based. So plant-based, plant-forward, plant-powered, lots of terms, basically eat tons of fruits and vegetables and less of the animal products. Next slide. So Hilary McClafferty, when she was at the University of Arizona, came up with a pediatric pyramid. And again, the bottom, you're supposed to eat more of the lower and then eat less and less as you go up the pyramid. So there's water there, fruits and vegetables. And as you go up, you can see grains, healthy fats, soy foods, and then dairy. So dairy's higher up, so we shouldn't have too much dairy. And then you have the seafood, meats, etc. And then sweets up at the top is sparingly. And then recognizing that this pyramid didn't reflect all cultures, and we are a multicultural society, she came up with the anti-inflammatory food table, because it's really a table we eat at. And if you can see, all the fruits and vegetables are represented there. And so the first layer is fruits and vegetables, and then you go up to herbs and spices, and then whole grains, and you have noodles and quinoa and wheat and corn, etc., pita bread, and then there's all the plant-based protein with lentils and peanut butter, and then you move to animal products, meat, and again at the top, desserts, sweets in sparingly. And then and then again, we also have at the bottom beverages, and the beverages are mainly water and decaffeinated teas for children. Next slide. So I wanted to share really briefly, and I'm really summarizing on one slide, tons of literature. If you look at the number of papers published, it's like thousands are published now in the Mediterranean diet. So in adults, significant improvement in cardiovascular disease, hypertension, insulin sensitivity, lipid profiles, inflammation, oxidative stress, fatty liver, carotid atherosclerosis, and it even reduces the burden and may prevent development of some of these diseases. There's overall lower risk of cancer mortality amongst cancer survivors, specifically for certain cancers, as I listed there, but better sleep, reduction in neurodegenerative diseases, decrease in all-cause mortality, benefits in IBD, disease activity and prevention, reduction in respiratory disease, less fragility, fracture, and most relevant, I think, is, for me at least at this stage, because I'm focused on it now, is improved memory, cognitive performance, rest, frailty, and depression. And I'm not going to share this, but definitely improvements in the microbiome have been shown, and linking this with some of the improvements that we're seeing. Next slide. So moving now to the impact of maternal diet. So mothers who are on an anti-inflammatory or the Mediterranean diet and children, again, there's less ALL risk, better neurobehavioral outcomes, as well as gestational diabetes and congenital defects, less of that, again, fewer neurodevelopment outcomes, and then better quality diet was associated with better visual spatial skills in offspring at early childhood, and better intelligence and executive function in mid-childhood. So again, what mothers eat is critical to the developing fetus, and here are a few studies that talk about this. We're going to next move on to the benefits in children. And again, I've summarized a lot of data. But again, cardiorespiratory, there's less overweight, obesity. This literature is a little bit mixed, but overall, the trend is in this direction. Improved cardiorespiratory fitness, less asthma, airway, improved thickness of the carotid intima media, improved lipid profiles, improved behavioral academic performance in school, less sensory processing abnormalities, less ADHD, less loneliness, aggressive behavior, and then less functional GI diseases and fatty liver. We talked about the IBD already, better diet quality, and then lower inflammatory markers, and in adolescence, better quality of life and happiness. So eating that apple a day keeps a doctor away, probably keeps a psychologist away, psychiatrist away, and all the meds. Next slide. Now, I want to move next into the benefits in fruits and vegetables. And I was doing a consult this week, and a very young, intelligent pre-med college student whom we're still following in our motility said, Dr. Mascarenas, you talk about all this. Well, give me one concrete example. And I was like, and I said, yes, turmeric, and we're going to come to this, turmeric and pepper. You mix that together, you increase the anti-inflammatory effect by 2,000%. And then she was like, I said, I guess you're going to go and now start looking into this. And she was like, yes, I am, because she wanted to challenge me at every step, which was good because she was learning. But we're going to go briefly over the benefits of fruits and vegetables. And really, they're rich sources of phytonutrients that can actually prevent a decreased chronic disease. And I've listed some of the major phytonutrients there, and lycopenes, beta-carotene, lutein, flavonoids, they're all in what we eat. Cruciferous vegetables, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, they have anti-cancer and antioxidant effects. How about onions, wine? Now, wine we're going to have not for our patients, but berries, apples. Again, they have quercetin, which might decrease cardiovascular disease by inhibiting platelet aggregation, lowering blood pressure. Tomatoes have lycopene, may actually help prevent prostate cancer. Spinach, kale, and other leafy greens may help reduce macular degeneration. Blueberries, really important for you in, again, preventative role in cancer, visual function. Cranberries help with UTIs, and olives have cardioprotective and anti-inflammatory effects. How about whole grains? Now, it's very important to know the definition of whole grain, because people use labels and stuff and they don't actually, the food product may not be representative of this, not reflect whole grains, but it really has to be intact, cracked, ground, cracked, or flake, or otherwise processed kernel after removing of the inedible portions, right? And the whole grain food product should have at least 50% whole grain products by dry weight. And again, in that outer part of the grain, there's a wide variety of vegetables and vitamins and minerals, fiber, essential fatty acids, and accessory food factors. And really, when you use whole wheat grain as milled to white flour, you lose more than 75% of the thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, vitamin E, and all the other nutrients over there. So that's amazing, right? Now, wouldn't you all be convinced now to use whole grain rather than the white flour? So I try to convince my patients this all the time. And then also, consumption of whole grain has been linked with a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, stroke, diabetes, and increased longevity. How about beans and legumes? The benefits fall into four categories: anti-obesity, anti-diabetic effect, cardioprotective effect, and gut health effect. And really, they are rich in all the nutrients that I've listed there. Now, soy is an interesting one because soy has estrogenic properties. I think the literature is mixed. So yes, young boys can have soy, but many nutrition bars, protein powders, and imitation meat contain soy protein, but it's 2 to 3 times more concentrated than what you naturally get. So you have to be careful. So soy, and this is what we're coming to time and time again, minimally processed food is okay, but when you have these ultra processed food, which that imitation meat would be, may not be good for you. And I've listed some excellent choices there. Next slide. How about mushrooms and nuts? So Michelle has a recipe of an excellent mushroom soup, but they have multiple properties: antibacterial, anti-candida, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. I'll let you read because you can read faster than I can read off the slide. But how about nuts? Nuts are an excellent source of protein, essential fatty acid, magnesium, fiber, and healthy fats. And they've been associated again with many, many benefits in the cardiovascular area, atrial fibrillation, lipid area, as well as NASH and increasing microbiome diversity. Probiotics, prebiotics, and synbiotics. I think you all know the definition, but yogurt, kefir, fermented pickles, sauerkraut, kimchi. So every culture has a healthy probiotic that's part of the culture. And then the prebiotics are in the foods that we're recommending, right? Breast milk, that's when you start off from the get-go. And then symbiotics is food or supplements that contain both of these together. So next slide, how do they actually work? So what they do is there's an antimicrobial effect. There's some secretory secretions of antibacterial substances such as IgA. There's competition with pathogens to prevent adhesions. There's a competition with pathogens for nutrients. There's an antitoxin, antioxidative effect. There's reversing infectious complications, modulating the immune system, and they've been tried for gastrointestinal and extragastrointestinal disorders, which I've listed there. And really, I think people use probiotics widely. I think in the form of food, it's great. And to have prebiotics also in some of food, as opposed to a supplement, is the way we should go. Next slide. I think this is my last slide, but I love that someone uses in a talk and I shamelessly borrowed it. There is a reason to season. So all these herbs and spices have a lot of anti-inflammatory properties and are linked with lower incidence of neurodegenerative diseases, decreased glycemic response, and improved lipid profiles and blood pressure. And people always say, what's the difference between an herb and a spice? So herb is from the leaf parts of herbaceous and non-woody plants, and I've listed examples. Spice are usually from the roots of flowers, the stalks, the seeds. They're usually dried, and I've listed some examples. And then you have products that are plants that are herbs and spices, and there's coriander. I use the leaves and the seeds. Dill, use the leaves and the seeds. So again, add as much as is palatable, but there's a reason to have an herb garden in every house.
So the way that we integrate culinary medicine into a one-on-one consultation. So I discussed the health benefits, which Maria just covered so beautifully. I share food preparation tips. For example, chopping garlic and letting it rest for just a few minutes increases the allicin content, which is the beneficial compound. Same with adding mustard or horseradish or wasabi to chopped cruciferous vegetables. that increases the sulforaphane content. I might ask patients for their favorite spice and then use that as entry point to discuss the health benefits of ginger, garlic, turmeric, cinnamon. You know that one of the key components in Tamiflu is shikimic acid, which comes from star anise. So during the winter season, everyone's concerned about immune health. I talk about star anise a lot. Some of the patients are, have environmental outdoor interests or anthropologic interests, so I might bring in the ethnobotanical history for those patients. And then I might just pique their interest with some sort of more unique plants and from different cultures and bring in the health benefits that way. This is a very short list of some of the herbs and botanicals that I use daily in my consultations. Ginger, triphala, flax, chamomile, psyllium, the bitters for the digestives, cumin, coriander, fennel for, gassiness. I'll use some of the adaptogens for stress, anxiety. Nearly all of our patients come in with some anxiety or insomnia, and even for skin irritation. So pretty much I bring in herbs and spices, botanicals into my practice in these kinds of ways. 8 keys to sustainable change. So, I do, this is a talk on culinary medicine, but I do want to emphasize, we want to emphasize that food is not everything. If you look at the blue zones, 7 out of the 9 principles are not related to what's on the plate. So, that's why in integrative medicine, we have many different pillars. So of course, physical activity and stress reduction, connection and purpose and is all very important. Not banning foods, it's important to add rather than restrict. Talk about adding variety, adding a fun, more colorful new foods rather than banning, for example, sugar and it becoming like a controlled substance. Making it delicious, instead of, I learned this with my family, instead of trying to say this is a replacement for chicken nuggets, you call it, give it a fun name and celebrate for what it is, like a tofu fritlin. Making that tasty food special or rare, let them ask for you to make it again. Of course, as pediatricians, we know the gift of exposure. We know, between 17 to 13 times of exposure changes people's tastes. Again, adding rather than restricting or depriving. I had a patient that loved to make pizza, and so he taught me how to make pizza. We did it together over Zoom. This was during the pandemic, and then I told him how to add spices. And now to this day, he's adding a lot more. He loves Brussels sprouts, so he's adding that to his pizzas. It definitely acknowledging cultural preferences. That can be a great way of bringing children and families into this. Encouraging creativity, either using a CSA box, community support agriculture, or have them, make different grains and make different bowls and let them taste different types, like, buckwheat and millet and teff and amaranth. Playing chopped with them, giving them a bunch of ingredients, letting them come up with their dish, because if they make it, they'll eat it. And then leading and living by example rather than preaching at them. I like this quote by Anne Lamott, right? Lighthouses don't go running around looking for boats to save. They just stand there shining. And then there are studies showing that physicians who disclose their personal habits are rated as more motivating by patients. And at our institution, we have a physician in the kitchen program where different physicians from different areas of medicine will share a recipe and talk about the health benefits in that particular field involving them. This is an example of doing chopped at home. And then for the, a lot of our teens are very, into the environment, which is wonderful. And culinary medicine can be used to help heal the planet. So we know that from the Eat Lancet study, eating more beans and pulses, they're nutrition, they're low cost, they're delicious, and they benefit the soil, right? Reducing red meat consumption or having like a meatless Monday, eating locally produced foods during off-season sprouting or fermenting. It's all you need is water, a jar, and some seeds. You don't even need soil. Using all parts of the food. So actually, a lot of these young adults, young people have. Some of them have written some really great cookbooks using all parts of food to avoid food waste. From carrot top pesto to using papaya seeds. You're making some of them make bacon out of banana peels. But I've played around with aquafaba, which can be really great for making whipped cream or salad dressing, granola cookies. It can be a lot of fun actually to try to use different parts of it. Corn silk is another great example. It's often thrown away when you're at the grocery store and it's like July 4th and we get a lot of corn in our area. But you'll see people pick up the silk, and that silk is actually you can put it into soup or teas, and it is a diuretic, actually very good for the kidneys. So we can have fun, enjoy health, and help the planet at the same time. A couple tips for helping children develop a healthy relationship with food. So, I'm sure I'm not the only one. We have a lot of patients that are facing disordered eating, orthorexia, even some that perhaps had to go on a therapeutic diet for a while, but then became much more restrictive. So it's important that we help our youth develop a healthy relationship with food. And so that's having open, honest conversations, promoting meals and snacks at the table or in an open room, not in their own room. Not refraining from reprimanding them for eating certain foods, even if you feel strongly about it. This is back to the, not having it become a controlled substance. Using other rewards rather than food related, and not linking it to finishing your food, providing structure or routines. And then there's Ellen Satter has a great book called The Division of Responsibility, where the parent provides the food, but the child decides how much to and whether to eat it. Exposing them to fruits and vegetables by just putting them out there. Sometimes I just happens to be that a big bowl of like brightly green, nice steamed broccoli happens to be on the table when they come home and they're hungry from school. Being a role model by trying different foods, creating new positive routines like family, Taco Tuesday, New Food Friday, and cooking and food shopping together with the youth can help encourage acceptance of diverse and new foods. Replacing the candy, the lollipops in our practices with like tea bags or fruit, letting them choose like a herbal tea bag and talking about it. Maybe encouraging them to, before bed, engage in some kind of routine, drinking a warm or cold beverage. Maybe as they get older, some journaling, so just some downtime. Adding fruits and herbs to water, or in the summertime, hibiscus tea is great. It's great for blood pressure. It's a beautiful color. They save money. And of course, Maria's talked about the benefits of reducing sugar-sweetened beverages, sodas, and juices. And then the roles of teas and botanicals. There's so many different ones to explore, like the Ayurvedic CCF tea, cumin, coriander, fennel. Lemon balm is great for anxiety, holy basil, passion flower, chamomile for relaxation. And again, maybe replacing the lollipops with like fidget toys or other types of rewards. Healthy, colorful, fun hydration. So here you have hibiscus, and then the blue one is the butterfly pea flower. And these are natural colors. This is not food coloring. These are from the anthocyanins from the plants. And then if you mix it together, you can make purple, you can make popsicles out of it. You can add berries. So there's a lot that you can do with it. This is La Puma. This is a great article that talks about the ways we can combine foods and cook, prepare the foods, and how that can improve nutrient bioavailability. So if you combine leafy greens with some fat with avocado, you get 7 times the lutein absorption. Same with combining olive oil and tomato for lycopene. Adding, of course, we all know this vinegar to a high-carb meal that reduces the spike. And there are studies showing this both in diabetics and non-diabetics. Adding walnuts, that increases the nitric oxide. Combining foods of the same color to provide better flavors. Turmeric, we know this. Adding black pepper and some fat helps with the bioavailability. Leaving the watermelon on the kitchen counter actually increases the lycopene and the beta carotene. Of course, you don't want to leave it too long outside, especially in the summertime, because then it can ferment and explode. But in general, better out on the kitchen counter. Lowering the heterocyclic amine formation if you marinate meat or your protein with some rosemary and some vinegar, that reduces the HCA production. We talked about the garlic and the brassica already. Eating healthy on a budget, acknowledging cost being a barrier and discussing concerns. And there are different, tips, not, buying in bulk, actually not paying for beverages and avoiding meat. It saves money. Buying in season, looking for sales, going back for seconds at the farmer's market, using SNAP benefits, and then I want to share with you this really great resource from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Renee Thomas developed this with California. It's really great. It gives you, I think, 2 weeks of recipes. The price per serving is like about $1 maybe or less per serving. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. They have gluten-free and like nut-free swap options. They give you a shopping list, and basically you can eat for like $4 or less a day with these recipes. And they're really great recipes. There's some examples here. 2 other really great resources. PCRM has Universal Meals, which was developed with the Culinary Institute of America. They have thrifty recipes, like less than $1 per serving. And these can be scaled up for like large kitchens, conferences, schools, medical facilities. The other resource is the Lenox Hill Neighborhood House. If you're interested, and they train actually for free these nonprofits to help convert their kitchen into a much more, plan forward, healthy, sustainable way of feeding. So these are examples of, the recipes and then we have a Health Bucks program. I'm sure you have something out there too as well, encouraging people to use their EBTs and their SNAP benefits for fruits and vegetables that get rewarded. They basically get double the purchasing power if they use it. We have New York at our institution, a youth market internship for food justice promotion with youth. We have a community academic partnership with Harlem Grown, which is an urban farm in New York City, with Weill Cornell Medicine, and our Heart Smarts are minority patients that are at risk for cardiovascular disease, and we're also exploring funding for looping in a group of underserved children in Harlem. And so what we did here was we went to the urban farm, we harvested the lion's mane mushrooms and different vegetables, and we made a lion's mane bolognese. Then they tasted it, and then we talked about the health benefits. Here are some other fast, recipes. And the picture on the right is, I got this from Jacqueline Albin. If you go to a medical conference and, short on time, so standing online to get whatever breakfast, she just brings like an avocado, some everything, bagel seasoning, an apple, and you got breakfast right there. And I like to bring the dried roast edamame in my bag, just so that I know I always have some kind of protein there. This is a recipe I share with my oncology patients. Actually, just this week, my patient said she made it twice already. But it has all of these things that we talked about, the allium family, turmeric, lots of spices, the mushrooms, the greens, and then some kind of protein. And astragalus is something I've been talking to patients a lot about. It's very good for the immune system. I'm going to keep going. We're almost done here. Here are some of the demos that I do. Pea guacamole, energy bites, a parfait, and with some of my students and residents, I might use Chisandra, which is a interesting taste test, and all the benefits of chamomile for sure. So here are some places you can get training, and if you scan the QR code, we can send you like a PDF of a more extensive list. So I don't know if I should stop my screen so we can take questions.
Maybe. Sorry.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I am super hungry right now. And B, there's so many things I have to ask you, but I know the folks in the audience will have a number of questions too. Thank you, Dr. Kemper. She asks if the slides will be available to review after the talk.
I'm happy to share the slides. Michelle, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question, and it has to do with definition of blue zone. You mentioned it a couple times in your presentation. Can you sort of give many people know what that is, but many might not. What does that mean?
Yeah, sure. So the blue zones are the locations in the world that have longevity, people living in their 90s and 100s. So it's Loma Linda, Icaria, Greece, Okinawa, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Sardinia. And they're actually, people don't realize there are blue zone cities in New York, in the United States. There's Texas, Florida, Minnesota. And there are, even though they have very different food patterns and they live in different parts of the world, there are certain commonalities, one of which is plant forward diet. They eat to their 80% full, not over full. They know how to downshift, whether it's prayer and or ancestors or taking a nap, siesta, right? They have mindful movement. They're not running marathons necessarily, but they're like walking, they're gardening, they're shepherds. What else? Some of them include moderate wine. What else am I missing?
Fermented foods, but I think one of the key thing is purpose.
Purpose, that's it.
Purpose.
Yes.
You know, it's like joint families or they're living close to grandchildren or great grandchildren, and there's purpose. There's purpose in the garden. There's purpose in their life.
Yes.
That's really key.
Yeah, Kige, and they each have their own plan de vida. They have different words for it, but it's having a sense of purpose. Exactly. Thank you.
The chat is exploding. Yay. One question is, are there advocacy opportunities at the governmental level to lower cost of produce as compared to dairy, for example?
I don't know, Michelle. I'll take a stab. I don't know. You know, we're a society where people have interests and they go to and so I think there are many people who want to do that, who want to make fruits and vegetables more affordable, to get rid of these food deserts in cities, for example, where there are better quality food. There's actually food there instead of all just ultra processed food. But I don't know how successful they are, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a lot of local, regional, I think, efforts. I know we have it in New York City. We're trying with produce prescriptions, but at the high level, I mean, hopefully with the White House conference, that was a big thing,
Yes.
too.
Thank you so much. And then, again, the chat is filling up with applause and accolades. But let me go to the next question. What's a good starting point to learn more about culinary medicine and training programs?
It's the last slide. You want to put that up?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I'm partial, but I think the Teach Colin Campbell plant-based certificate program is really good. It's like 6 weeks. You can do it on your own time. I do teach for that, but that's been a 20-year program that you can get a lot of. That's a great start. ACLM has a food as medicine CME. I think it was available for free for pediatricians and AAP as well. There's Healthy Kitchen, Healthy Lives. That's like a nice, if you have CME money, it's expensive. I haven't had a chance to go yet. I think Maria's gone in the Napa Valley. Well, that's nice. Harvard has a chef program, and then Tulane has their program as well.
Next question. How does one consult on using natural treatments that might be high in sugar, i.e. local honey for allergies, while recommending reducing sugar intake?
The body is really good with working with natural products. And and the benefits of the natural products, you're getting more than just the sugar part, right? Like honey, manuka honey is used for wounds, etc. So my philosophy is everything in moderation. Everything in moderation. Get rid of the artificial sweeteners for sure, but if you have to add a little bit of sugar or honey or agave, go for it, but everything in moderation, balance it out. And then use foods that are naturally sweet, and pick your recipe, like substituting applesauce, right, in a recipe instead of. So there are ways to kind of do this, but you have to be savvy and search them out.
And like fruits in their whole form come naturally packaged with the fiber, and so that helps with the absorption of the fructose and glucose.
Yeah, glycemic control, whole fruit.
Yeah.
The orange is better than the orange juice. The apple is better than the apple juice.
Thank you so much. There is a comment that they recommended the Netflix documentary about blue zones, living to 100. The other question is about hiring more dietitians. Can you speak to including dietitians in your programs and advocating for increased insurance coverage for your dietetic colleagues so they can help provide this information? Because it's true, it's really hard. We don't have enough time in a 15, 20-minute visit to cover all this as much as we'd like to. But we could hire folks who can do this. What are your tips on that?
Michelle, you go first, and then I'll talk about what we do at CHOP.
Yeah, so that's why we've done group visits where we can, both meet with many people at once. That seems to help with, access. Go ahead, Maria, if you.
Yeah, I think that it's a clearly dietitians would be at CHOP in our culinary medicine program. Dietitians are one of the foundation blocks. We couldn't do it without them. But I think what we've done here is we have in our ketogenic diet program, we have a medical chef educator. And so they work with the dietitian, and then the medical chef educator actually spends more time with them around recipe development, cooking, etc. And I think we've been trying to work more with dietetics, etc., to help some of the education. The other part is you can have all that, but is to drop these little tidbits during a visit. And Michelle shared a few of them. And I can't tell you how powerful it is for me to say, oh yeah, try sauteing your vegetables next time with a pinch of turmeric and pepper, with a little bit of vegetable oil, and your kids will eat, and they won't even know they're getting an anti-inflammatory food, a dish. So those things, you don't underestimate the power you have with just dropping these few pearls now and then throughout the visit, throughout the year in your care of your child. But dietitians are a key portion, and I agree. I wish we could hire more because they're a wonderful resource.
Thank you. I also want to put a plug in. We live in a very incredible part of the world where we actually have two naturopathic schools in the Northwest, one in Portland and one in Seattle, and our naturopathic colleagues have quite a bit of this training and are more than happy to help partner with us with caring for our kids. Dr. Kemper mentions Reshmi Shah developed a 30-hour nutrition CME program and has a great book called Nourish. And there's also a question about, do you recommend a website for checking how processed certain store-bought brand name foods are?
I have one. I just don't know it offhand, but I will get it to.
Okay.
I have one. I will get it to you.
Read the labels. I would say read the labels.
Yeah.
And there's an art to reading the labels. And if you have time to teach your patients how to read the labels, that's what when we have culinary medicine for residents, etc., we're trying to teach them so they can teach their patients how to read the labels and assess really what you're getting.
Yeah.
I know we're very close on time, and I just could talk to you for hours. And some of this sounds very much like a harm reduction model, right? So we have so much of this and so many other aspects of what we do is to not just make this hard stop, this is it, but it's more harm reduction. Like let's try to just like gradually make some little changes that will lead to major changes. But because I think then we can partner with our families throughout all different cultures, ethnicities, and socioeconomic categories, so that we actually partner with them in making incremental changes that lead to big results. What was the recipe resource again? That's from Kimberly. I think that was in Michelle's last slide again.
ACLM, yeah, ACLM.
ACLM. Thank you so much, Suzanne. Did you want to take it away? I know that you're the Grand Rounds guru. Thank you so much, everybody. This has been fabulous.
Yes, I'm hungry too. Thank you everyone so much for being here. Thank you to our speakers and our lectureship and Dr. Bruner again for bringing together all these fantastic people. And now I'll see you all in Whole Foods later this morning, shopping for all your delicious snacks. And we really, really appreciate this knowledge. So thanks everyone. We'll see you next week.